What's going on, Bet Spurters? We are back two abreast this week after the solo show with me. Last week, I'm sure you had more than enough of me just speaking to you for 30 straight minutes, but we'll try and do that with the Byron show over here on Bet Spurts Golf, talking about the Arnold Palmer Invitational taking place at Bay Hill Club and Lodge this week for our fourth designated event of the year. And we've got a loaded field. We've got 69 golfers. Couldn't quite get to 70 because the PGA Tour is just a little stubborn in that nature, but we've got Webb Simpson in the field, Ron, so that's exciting for us.
Man, you talk about stuff to complain about. I mean, there's so many issues. Field sizes, lack of drama, no names littering the leaderboard, the live issues persist. So, I mean, will this finally be the week the big boys strap up their boots and give us some superstar drama on the weekend? God bless the Naps and the Dunlaps and the Pavons of the world, but man.
Hey, Nap's a superstar. He's budding. I've got him again for outright this week. So if he wins again this week, I'm going to be very happy. Ron, talk to us about what you've plugged into the rabbit hole. What's important this week? What's cooking over at Bay Hill?
Yeah, so I mean, Bay Hill, we have this classical Florida-style golf course characterized by, its length, Bermuda grass, thick rough, typically firm and fast greens. We didn't really see it at PGA National like we were expecting last week. I'm pretty sure, I know the rain issue has persisted in Florida, so hopefully we get some firmness there. Tons of bunkers, water hazards. Yeah, windy conditions have played a factor here. 5 of the last 6 winners have finished with a score of 12 under or lower. So it's kind of one of those courses where par is an acceptable score on a majority of the holes, except the par 5s, which you really need to score on the par 5s. But yeah, this is the kind of the layout that plays as the toughest non-major course on tour. And so, yeah, course knowledge is really key here. In the rabbit hole, one of the things you can do is just, select Bay Hill and you can go back and see, past history. So this is the third most predictive course on tour. Total driving is a really big one for me this week. Rabbit Hole has the option of total driving. Obviously, you can look at ball flight, apex height, which is key this week as well. Long iron accuracy, if you want to look at the rough and the fairway. Rabbit Hole is the only place where you can kind of separate those. Obviously, the rough is an issue this week. There is a much higher rough penalty. And so to be able to look at, 200 plus is kind of the key distance. I think it's 50% of all approaches are from 175 and higher. So that's just really cool to be able to look at, how does a guy play, 200 from the rough. Scrambling comes into play this week as well, around these greens, the rough has kind of been built up. Bogey avoidance, another key stat that I'm looking at this week as well. So a lot of important qualities and metrics we're looking for.
Yeah, and they're very finite. I think that's the fun part about this course, or not the fun part, but a very unique part about this golf course is unless you have like a supreme short game week where someone that's short and pop gunny kind of scrambles and putts their face off, you're not going to get around this golf course at the least amount of strokes if you don't have distance and good long iron play out of the rough. That's just basically the prerequisite to success at this venue. And if you don't have it, tough cookie for you. So we'll dive into it, Jaron, and take a look at the board. For some reason, they refuse to put Scotty and Rory ultra expensive. I guess the smaller field potentially has them feeling like they can, narrow the salary tiers this week. We've had back-to-back weeks of 5K ranges, and this week we don't. So we've got Scotty Scheffler sitting at 11.3, Rory at 10.6, and then Cantley, the rogue agent there in the 10K range at a flat $10,000. The two obvious names at the top here are Rory and Scotty. Their track record at this venue has been impeccable. Between the two of them, in their 8 starts, their worst finish is at 15th, and that was Scotty in 2020. So, they are just inside the top 10 perennially around this venue, and I think avoiding both of them this week would be a probably terrible mistake on your part. They most likely, one of them is going to be in the mix come Sunday, right? So which way are you leaning at the top there on? Right now, they've got Scotty projected as the most owned golfer at 11.3. I would find it difficult to believe because I'd imagine Rory catches a bit more steam over the next few hours before lock, because a $700 price difference to me is just for two guys that are very similar is enough for people to go to that way more than Scotty.
Yeah, little change of strategy this week for me. I'm going pretty heavy on these top two of Scheffler and McIlroy. I agree with what you said there. I think they're both underpriced. Rory especially, both rank 1-2 for me on difficult courses in strong fields when you kind of combine those two together, which you can do on the rabbit hole. Both of them are top 3 in Florida since 2016, both elite par 5 scores, which again, you'll probably heard this a bunch, but because the par 3s and par 4s are so tough here, like you have to score on the par 5s. And, if you look, 14 of the last 17 winners here at Bay Hill have been in the top 40 in the PGA Tour in par 5 scoring for the season leading up to their victory. So that number just keeps playing out. Both guys are elite total drivers. Rory with the best course history of any course for him right here at Bay Hill. And I actually bet Rory in single digits this week. And this is I think only the second time I've ever done that. So I think another difference for me with Rory is how much more comfortable he looks on the greens. So yes, he did struggle at PGA National putting last week. But if you look before that, he's actually gained putting in 12 of his last 13 tournaments. And then, of course, Scotty's won here as well. And I think both are just really motivated to play their best. And especially on these longer, tougher courses where it's not a birdie fest, I think it kind of does bring out the best in both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially Scotty. I think you can see Rory on a softer course kind of going super low too, because he can get hot with the putter a bit more than Scotty. But I think Scotty just tee to green is just going to tear this place apart again. I bet him top 10 at minus 140. So I love what Scotty Scheffler can get up to this week. I think I'll be playing both of them going into it. Ron, with your contest selection, how are you rocking and rolling there? Are you going 150 max, or are you doing like single entry, 3 entry maxes, kind of condensing your player pool, trying to really optimize your leverage you take on a few opportunities down there?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of leverage plays this week. And so usually when that's the case, and especially when you have, a field at 70 or less players, for me, it's not a 150 week. It's more of a, some of the 20 max tournaments or just 20 lineups. And I think there's enough options out there where you can still kind of cover all of your favorite plays and not have to, max out. And so again, with so much volatility, especially with the top of these leaderboards, it makes me hesitant to just go too much. And so I think for me, at least this week is where I'm going to focus mostly on, maybe 20, 30 lineups at the most.
Yeah, I'm expecting myself to have about 10. So I'm going to just kind of do that route again this week. I locked in all 149 of my lineups last week. I forgot to wake up in time. So I had Steven Yeager and Eric Cole in 149 lineups. Great stuff for me. And I had Billy Horschel in that lineup as well. So that hurt big time. Anyway, don't do that. Make sure you get your stuff figured out. It's the East Coast now. Locks are early in the morning. Make sure you get that stuff figured out. Let's dive into the nines and speak about some guys that aren't a lock. And I think there's some opportunities to fade some rather chalky individuals in this range, with the likes of Sam Burns sitting at $9,300. I know he's been playing great golf. I've been on him pretty much every single week heading into this. I don't know if this course suits his game that well, if I'm being completely honest with you. I know he's had a 9th year, but he's also missed the cut either side of that. It's a golf course that can eat you up if you're not in full control of your game. He's a great driver of the golf ball, but I don't know if he's a very good scrambler. He's not a very good long iron player either. So there's a lot going against him here. I really prefer Jordan Spieth over Burns if I were to pick a chalkier position in that range. And that's my favorite play too, is Jordan Spieth. I really, really like him, and Hovland. I'll be starting a few of my lineups with Hovland and Spieth this week, just because I think, that gives me a chance to really be a bit more balanced. And I think with Hovland there, I don't expect him to be in the 20% ownership that he's kind of being pushed at right now. I think people are going to be scared of his recent form. So give me some of your favorite plays here in this 9K range, Ron.
Yeah, so for me, Victor Hovland at 9.9, it's been a quiet start to the year for him. But I'll say it again. I think I said this when I played him at the Genesis. I want to be early with him, and his ball striking was back. When he played at Riviera, gaining 3.7 combined off the tee and an approach. And so, he's been last 2 years 2nd and 10th here. And I think, again, this course just accentuates his total driving, his long iron play, the things he's really good at. Of course, we keep going back and forth about the around the green stuff. I think he's better from more difficult rough than he is from tight lies. And so you have more of that thicker rough here that's been built up around the greens when they changed the course here back in 2019. So I just think kind of almost similar to Rory and Scotty that, when it's not a birdie fest, when there's not this pressure for him to keep going low, I just think he's able to separate from the field a little bit more with his ball striking. And I think this course, allows him to do it because of how it plays. And so, because I guess kind of, so with my strategy of, if I'm playing a lot of Scheffler and McIlroy and Hovland, I'm dropping all the way down here to Justin Thomas at 9K. I'm not complete fading everybody in there, but, I agree with, what you said. For example, Sam Burns, even if you look at his performance on difficult courses, like he's 41st in this field, like he, when the events get, stronger in field strength, I just think he hasn't really proven yet that he can come through in those areas. I mean, I would love to play Max Homa, but when you look at his approach play and just his overall ball striking, like something's going on there. So I'm going to wait on him.
Like Homa,
yep.
His best trait is his putter, and it's one of his worst right now, like from a strokes gain perspective. He's losing the most strokes out of all of his 4 categories with the putter, which, if that bounces back at some point, then he's going to have a great week potentially. But just right now, I don't think on these greens it's going to happen. But who the hell knows? I think it's interesting, though, because he could potentially come in at single figures, Ron.
Yeah. Yeah, and, at JT, like we talked about, around 13% ownership right now. I think that's very palatable. And, I just think when we're looking at, their ball striking, he has looked pretty well here the first couple months of this year. And so, typically plays well here in Florida. So I just think that's a really solid price at 9K, especially if that ownership can stay under 15%. I do like JT this week. But it's pretty much skipping down here and, playing a few more of these guys in the AKs.
Yeah. Is it even possible to play Scotty and Rory in the same lineup?
Because I think, you're looking at low 7Ks, but for sure. Because, I think Rory easily could have been over 11 this week just based on his course history alone. So I don't think that's baked into it enough, but I think you can do it.
Yeah. If you click them both, you've got Rory and Scotty there at a casual, then you've got $7,000 left. So if you can find someone that's going to be affordable down in the bottom to kind of get you back into the 8Ks for the last few guys, maybe that's the way to go. We can kind of find those when we get into the 6s shortly. I do think if you are not going with Rory and Scotty in the same lineup, you're probably going to have to find at least one cheapo guy in the bottom of the 8s. And to me, I'm probably looking at a little bit of Sahith Theegala. I'm probably looking at a bit of Jason Day. I do like the 2 guys there in that range. They're very affordable in the bottom of the range there. And then 4 options that I really like in this AK range are Will Zalatoris. I know he's going to be very popular, but I just think he's going to suit this golf course really nicely. 2 big boy tracks he's played at the last 2 times. 18th at the Farmers, when he really started showing us that he's coming back. He started finding his groove on that weekend. I think if that was a 5-round tournament, Will Zalatoris might have been in the mix. He was starting to move in that direction. And then he really showed us that he's back when he finished 2nd at the Genesis. So those 2 courses are 2 big boy tracks. I feel like you can kind of comp the guys that have played well on those 2 going into this week, especially the Farmers, because it's kind of got that same driving feel, right? There's a bit more water involved, but if you miss the fairway, you got that rough to deal with. And Willie Z just seems to get it out of that rough so well. Other options that I really like are Cameron Young, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Wyndham Clark, all in that same spot there. Wyndham Clark being my most favorite because it just seems like he's going to be coming in at 9-10% ownership, which if you can find a 10%, 9% guy that can potentially find himself inside the top 5 this week, that's what you're looking for. It's a small field. It's going to be hard to find options that are like 5% or less. So having 1 or 2 guys that are in that range that have upside. Wyndham Clark is elite out of the rough. He's elite. He's not the most accurate driver of the ball, but he's so good out the rough that it's okay. I think he knows where his ball's going to miss all the time as well. I don't know how much water's to the right on this golf course anyway. So I'm kind of okay going with Clark this week. And then Fitz. He fits this course, baby. Like, I'm not a big fan of Matthew Fitzpatrick ever, but he is like Matt Fitzpatrick is rattling off a 2nd, a 9th, a 10th, a 9th, and a 14th. He's got a similar kind of track record as Scotty and Rory up at the top there. Just incredible, incredible stuff. He's bogey avoidance, he's short game. Just he loves this place. And I think Fitz is one of those sentimental guys, like winning at Harbour Town and playing well at courses he plays well at. He played okay last week. I can't say he was like amazing, but he did have a few holes where he kind of blew up. But he dominates par 5s and has a good time there. So I like him a lot in the top range there.
Yeah, I like a lot of the same guys. I mean, when you look at Zalatoris, he ranks as the best player in this field in performance above his baseline when you look at difficult scoring conditions. And so something about these tough courses just bring out the best in him. And so, I know we keep going back to this, but some of these important metrics for the week, he's just elite in, when you look at, total driving, long iron play. He also thrives in firm and fast conditions. And going back in the rabbit hole, even looking on courses with a high rough penalty, like you said, another thing you can use the rabbit hole for is looking at club head speed, even out of the specifically to courses like Bay Hill, when you could look and see how players perform. Here, I guess, kind of like what you mentioned, trying to hit the ball out of the rough, you want that higher club head speed. And so, yeah, he checks all those boxes for sure. He's one of those guys where, if he gets above 15%, he's a good chalk to me. Cameron Young, another guy who I know is popular. I see him right now around 20%. He's second in my core 4, which kind of looks at those same metrics that we're talking about here, long iron play, total driving, par 5 scoring. I agree with Fitz. Now, Fitz for me is someone like the course history is just spectacular. And I guess for me, he's a guy just because of how inconsistent he's been lately that I'm willing to fade just because of that ownership, even though there's probably a good chance he does finish top 10, top 15 again because he's played so well here. But yeah, his inconsistency scares me away a little bit. So like a pivot for me down here that I really am starting to like more as the week goes on is Tom Kim sitting there at 8-3. And, in that same core 4 model, he finishes 5th in this entire field. He's top 10 in total driving. I think for me, his spike putting ability, he tends to have these up and down weeks. But if you can catch him on a week where he gets really hot on the greens, at 8-3 is just a lot of appeal there for me to play him. So, it's for me down in the 8Ks, it's going to be a whole lot of Zalatoris, Cam Young, and Tom Kim.
Tom Kim ruined me. I had him in half of my lineups in round 4 showdown that I locked in Jake Knapp and had EVR for 50% of those lineups too. So I had like the 2 aces in the hole, and then Tom Kim, not just like playing an averagely bad round, played just a completely disastrous, utterly pathetic, catastrophically bad round 4. Like, what were you doing? Like water balls, bizarre. Like, I don't know if he plays these Florida courses well. Like, I don't think he likes water. So he's pissed me off enough that I'm just off.
Hey, clean slate. Give him a clean slate this week. Just get him in a few lineups. Okay. Hey, I played Chan Kim and you begged me to. Okay. So I'll throw him 5%. Yes.
I'll throw him in my winning lineup, and then you can nuke that as well for me. But no, we'll throw him in there with hopes. I mean, at that ownership, why the hell not? I don't mind it at all, Ron. Sungjae M, course history, broken golfer. Like, it's just, there's opportunity for some people that are playing like good and bad. He just seems like he's completely lost right now. It's kind of sad. And it's interesting, Ron. I was thinking about this I don't know what I was doing, but for someone that plays as much golf as Sungjae, for him to be playing bad golf, that can like really be like exponentially bad for you. Like, the more golf you play, the more it's bad. the worse it's going to get, because your confidence level just gets plummeted like that quicker. It's just, you don't have that much space in between rounds to figure your stuff out. He plays so much golf. It's like a really interesting situation.
Let me say this, though. So just think about this, though. So you have a small field event, and if you're trying to get leverage, okay. Now, I'm not recommending anyone do this, but if you're playing 150 lineups, I would do this, okay. So if you combine Max Homa and Sung J M's ownership, I'm seeing 17% total, okay. Yeah. If you put both of those guys in the same lineup, again, they haven't been playing well. They've been playing poorly, in fact. But again, both with good course history here. Again, these are some of the risks. If you can find two guys these both are elite players. And so, for me, if I was multi-maxing, those are two guys. And that's something I've started to do more, is look for combinations of guys, two guys with low ownership who are elite players who just tend to be struggling. And so you never know. If this is their week where they bounce back, you're going to be way ahead of the field if you have two, not just one, but two guys like that.
Right, because you don't even have to go into like the 6 and the lowest 7s to find that ownership, because if they do have a bounce back round, it's going to be much better than trying to find a delinquent down in the 6K range, right? Like that's typically the philosophy kind of rolling out there. I kind of like that one, but I'm always just very aggressive with ownership anyway, so it's naturally how I kind of build my lineups. Let's dive into the 7s here, though. Chris Kirk, Corey Connors, two course history thoroughbreds here, sitting with 10th and 7th best course history over the last little while. Corey Connors, he's just got these courses where he just kind of plays his good golf, and this is one of them. The ball striking is 6th in the field. The short game is 66th. There's 69 people in the field. Like that's what you're going to be getting. And I think that short game kind of gets nullified a little bit at this venue. He seems to figure it out. The same thing with Chris Kirk. Very good at scrambling around these golf courses. Loves himself some Florida golf. There's two little ropey draw guys. It's kind of funny how they found success at this golf course. I've got Jake Knapp and Benny On labeled right underneath them too at $7,600 a piece. I feel like Benny On's distance and his around the green play are two top 10 traits, top 15 traits in this field, which I'm cool leaning on both of those for Benny On. And Jake Knapp has just been hitting his irons so well. The last 16 rounds, I know it's cherry picking some metrics here, but Jake Knapp's 3rd in the field in ball striking over the last 16 rounds, the 4 tournaments he's played since the Farmers. So we'll have to see what he gets up to this week. This is the first big test he's had of really going up against the big boys, but he held his own against Rory in 3 consecutive rounds of golf and actually out-dueled him, so now he gets JT. I'm curious as to where that goes. And then I'll pick up the broken Shane Lowry, Bron. My stance on him. I called it on Sunday. He got right in the mix and it was inevitable. It was just inevitable. He's the Thanos of the golf world, where he just clicks his fingers and just melts himself off the leaderboard for no reason. But I'm going back to him this week. I feel like he's got a good shot at this golf course after playing good golf last week.
Yeah, there's a couple course history stands that I'm taking this week as far as stand like not playing, and so Shane Lowry is one of those. So, but good luck to you. Yeah, for me, like Chris Kirk, I think this course doesn't seem like it would fit him, as well, because it's a longer track, a lot of longer iron shots. But like when you look at not only his course history here, but his recent form, so his last 9 tournaments, he's got 7 top 30s in his last 9. So, obviously he won the Century, long, really big course. So I just think that he's kind of even transforming into this all-around player who can almost play at any course. And just his consistency and his form, and at 10% ownership, I don't know if you're seeing more than that, but I think he's going to, with Corey Connor sitting right there and, Adam Scott below, I think Kirk, if anything, I think his ownership will go down as we head into, tonight. And so I think he's a really appealing play. But yeah, I agree with Corey Connors. He's another good shot guy this week, 3 top 21s here. And again, it goes back to those same metrics, accuracy off the tee, elite long iron play, Bermuda, his best putting surface. And we just see him continually playing well on these tough courses, whether it's Augusta National. Obviously, he owns TPC San Antonio and here as well. So, and then, going down, I think Adam Scott is another, maybe the biggest misprice on the slate here. World-class driver. He's got 2 third-place finishes here. he's in the midst of one of the best stretches of his career. I mean, he's got 7 straight top 20s. He's got 5 top 8s inside of those 7. So he'll be owned, but I think he's an excellent safe anchor for your lineups who also brings top 5 upside. So I think he's just an overall great play. And then, yeah, Keegan Bradley is another guy who, a lot of people who are trying to, I'm not necessarily going to try to have a lot of Scotty and Rory in the same lineups, but, I think those people who do have both, I think you're going to see a lot of Keegan Bradley ownership here. For me, it's going to be more or less playing one of those top guys and then kind of mixing in, the other ranges in. But yeah, Keegan Bradley, 5 top 12s here. Seems to elevate his game in strong field events. If you remember the Travelers, last year was a signature event. He's the 7th best player on in Florida courses going back 2016. So I think he's another underpriced player. And I'll just wrap up the bottom of the 7K range here. I think Luke List might be one of my favorite plays in this entire field. He was runner-up at Riviera, very similar ball striking test. He is the best, at least in my numbers, the best long iron player in this field from 200 plus yards. Tends to thrive on these longer courses. He's a good par 5 scorer, and he's kind of in decent form right now. So I think Luke List is one of those course fit guys who is going to be a pretty big staple in my lineups. And I'll finish with Bez, Christian Bezadenhout at 7K. Surprisingly sneaky history here. And again, we get down in this range, kind of picking and choosing guys based on a couple things. And, he's been playing pretty well recently this year as well.
Well, in 2024, he's gained the 2nd most strokes on approach in this field. It's been 15 rounds of golf, but still, he went on this tear on the front 9. Speak about another guy that completely just sabotaged himself with the Cognizant. He was inside the top 10 at one point on the front 9 of Friday and then missed the cut. Like, it was the craziest situation I've ever seen. He just completely nuked, and it was one person that tweeted out, like, Bears woke up feeling dangerous. And the moment he tweeted that out, it just went to crap. It was quite funny. Like, he got absolutely reamed for it. Anyway, I do love Bezzy. I kind of filtered on some course history stuff here, and he's the only other option outside of Sungjae Im to catch some single-figure ownership for really good course history plays. So we'll have to see what he can get up to. I'm very curious as to see how his ball striking kind of fits to this golf course since his irons have come back to life. Some other options that I did want to mention is Luke List. Like you said there, Ron, I have an outright on him. If you think about that Torrey Pines comp, I mean, he's won that tournament before. He played phenomenally at Riv. So the putter has let him down big time at this golf course. I think we could expect him to kind of just be neutral or gain a few more strokes on the greens this week. So I don't mind him whatsoever. I also want to mention Steven Yeager. I think the way he's driving the golf ball right now can just really catalyze the rest of his game. He's a pretty good long iron player as well. If you take a look at weighted green regulation rates, he's 4th in the field. He's very good out of the rough. Very, very good. When he actually leads this field in green regulation rates from 150 yards and out, Steven Yeager. So that's ideal to me. He's a very good driver of the ball. He led the field last week in driving, missed the cut because he can't putt. So we'll have to see what he can do there. But I'm cool for him at $7,200 at 7% ownership, whatever.
Do you agree with this 14% Harris English ownership? Guys, I know he does have a good track record on these longer courses, tougher conditions, but I'm just not, just the current form, I'm just not seeing it.
Ron, I'm cool with ownership for course history if it makes sense course history to me. But if the golfer's profile doesn't check out, if he has to make 1 million putts in order for that to happen, and that's his thing, right? Is just he's so good with the short game at this course. I don't buy it. I'll let the 14 or whatever. I know he finished second. Yeah, he kind of flew up the leaderboard on Sunday. I think he had a bogey-free round on Sunday, which was incredible. But yeah, I don't see it this week. He's coming into the week playing okay, but the ball striking has just been pretty bad, kind of out of control for all that we know. So we'll leave him alone. Let's dive into, actually, before we do that, what about Tom Hoagie? I know like he's really, really good with the approach play right now. He's third in the field, but the around the green play has been bad, but the putting has been pretty solid, the last little while. It's an interesting situation.
Yeah, he's always the guy who can just get so hot with his irons. So yeah, 7,100. I've been like a little bit of Nikolai Højgaard, who's right above him at 72. He kind of fits the profile for this course. I know he's struggled recently, but another pretty good low ownership number on him. So he's another interesting name. And this is, again, we're kind of in mix and match territory if you're playing a ton of lineups with some of these guys. So a guy like Tom Hoagie probably wouldn't make my pool if I'm focusing on 20 lineups, 30 lineups. But yeah, if I'm expanding outward, I think you have to include him.
Yeah, I agree. Cool bananas. All right, let's dive into the sixes here, where we're going to have to find some value if you are starting with a pretty staunch top of the board there. Let's chat about Minwoo Lee. I think he's the talk of the town here in the 6K range, $6,600. I had a Benny On matchup against him, and I was tilting pretty much the entire week. Minwoo finished at minus 14 for the week. He shot minus 14 on the 12 par fives for the week. He played 12 holes under 14 under par. The rest of them he played level par and beat my guy by like 3 or 4 shots. Like, I couldn't believe it. He had one of the best approach weeks of his life. Honing out, like just hitting 3 woods to 4 feet. It was mind-bending stuff, Ron. We're more tilting than Tom Kim. These Korean Australians are just driving me nuts right now. So not to be countryist or anything like that, but I've never been a fan of those Australians. They're a bunch of cheats when it comes to cricket anyway. So anyway, Ron, give me your take on Minwoo Lee.
I mean, I agree completely with his price being just horrible. Like, he should probably be, especially after last week, he probably should at least be around 8K. So I have no idea what they're thinking here. That being said, I'm seeing 25% right now. And I don't know if people know this about his last 2 years here at the Arnold Palmer, but he's lost 18.8 strokes in 2 events. Like, he's completely bombed out, losing 9 strokes off the tee, which doesn't make any sense for how good of a driver he is. And yeah, we'd all agree he's much improved even from last year. So I'm not putting a ton of stock into that as much as I am just, the ownership. And even if you look right next to him, Eric Van Rooyen, probably another guy who's underpriced. And he's also coming in at, 12, 13%. And so, yeah, for me, like in this area, I think the ultimate pivot, maybe one of the biggest pivot opportunities ever, is a guy like Patrick Rodgers, who's right there, 6,500. A guy who is one of the best off the tee players. He is, top 30 short game, and so I think if you're looking to get different, I think Patrick Rodgers makes sense. And I'll even go up a little bit. And there's not a lot that really intrigues me in this range, but I do think your boy Emiliano Grillo at 6,900, with his course history, with his pretty decent form. His putting is so much improved. And I think when you combine that with his ball striking, I do think he has some upside here. And, I would not be surprised if he, finishes top 10, top 15. And so, I think Justin Rose is a little interesting as well, just because of his pedigree. Again, we can get into some other things with his game, but I think Grillo and Patrick Rodgers are going to be my main 2 guys down here.
Yeah. Patrick Rodgers, I mean, he hasn't played phenomenally around this golf course. Like, he's made 4 cuts, though, in the last 5 consecutive years that he's played here. And then this year at the Farmers, 9th. Mexico, played quite nicely to finish 6th. So he's got these courses where the bomber narrative comes through, and he's been playing good golf there. I'm cool with him at 65. Love Grillo as well. Just majorly concerning when it comes to the around the green play. Like, I can see him completely chipping himself out of this tournament, but at the same time, you're most likely not going to chip a ball into the water, so you're probably just going to lose like 1 stroke, like versus bad iron play can lose you 1.5 to 2 strokes. So hopefully he can keep it together. I know I'm looking at it in a weirdly optimistic and pessimistic light there, but it is what it is. Another name that if you just kind of take unique characteristics from his game, and he grades out quite nicely from a comp course standpoint for me, is Mackenzie Hughes at $6,100. He's very, very good around the greens. He's typically a very good putter when he gets like firing, and his long irons out of the rough. He's 15th in green regulation rates out of the rough from 150 and out. So he kind of knows how to get the ball on the green when it comes to these long approach shots out the rough. Now, I don't know exactly how that's going to translate to thick rough like we've seen over here, but Mackenzie Hughes is not a terrible option. He finished 61st last year, made the cut. He's $6,100. You know, if you're looking for an option to get very, very expensive up top, he gives you that. So I don't mind that at all, and see what's going on. And then I did a filter on where you do the top 20 in accuracy and the top 20 in distance in my model. And Victor Hovland was one of them, Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantley. Grayson Murray was the fourth and final guy to make that cut.
Great par 5 score too.
So he'll be non-owned. You know, people don't like him. He hasn't been playing good golf. I feel like a big boy golf course like this, he's pretty good at scrambling. You know, I think if you take a look at what he got up to on the Corn Ferry Tour, his scrambling was pretty good. His around the green play is very good. So we've got a 12th in around the green play and 12th off the tee for Grayson Murray with $6,000 flat. Two very important, like if your irons just don't hit the water, he can get up and down for par, right? And that's going to be like, we saw that at the Sony when he was just scrambling his life away. So he's another guy I'll be leaning on at $6,000 flat. We'll see what cooks. A little shout out to Andrew Novak, who you mentioned didn't make the field. He's had as many top 10s as Webb Simpson has. Novak has had 3 top 10s in his last 3 starts, like you mentioned. Webb has had 3 since 2022. Like, it's just an atrocity that he's in the field. I don't understand why. We've got to make sure that changes. Hopefully this goes viral so that he can get himself in there last minute. Who knows? Just kidding. Anyway, Ron, pick your range, any range. Let me know who's your favorite, and let's try to remember. I don't feel like we just kind of continuing forgetting, even when you've won the tournament with your guy, basically. Pick your range. Let's figure out who we're going to match up against each other there.
Let's see here. Yeah, let's go a little top of the board here. Let's go. We'll take out Scotty and Rory. Let's go 10,000. We'll start with Patrick Cantlay, and let's take it down to Willie Z at 8,900. So 10K to 8,900, and you go first again.
Cool. I'll go with Spieth.
I will. I'll go with Victor. I think yeah, Spieth does have, what I think is back-to-back top 4s here. So yeah. Will be interesting to see if Victor can kind of turn it around and get back up top here.
I don't like that matchup because I like them both, so I'm going to be rooting against myself, but it's just for a buck, so I'll have to get over that. For what it's worth, I have Victor Hovland in all 3 of my one and dones this week. I'm locking him in.
Did you? I was going to ask you. Did you even look at Puerto Rico at all?
Yes.
Not?
Let me look quickly. Chat about.
Let me pull up. Yeah. So
remember who I bet.
Yeah. So I think. There's not a lot of opportunity on DraftKings this week. I think they could have made the contest a little bigger, but yeah, I think. Chris Gotterup, I don't understand. I understand he does fit the course well, but he's like second in betting odds right now, which kind of blows my mind. But yeah, Ben Griffin, 9,600 on DraftKings. I think he's a really good fit for this course. He's due for a win. If you want to go down a little bit further, I think Brandon Wu always plays these coastal tracks well. He's at 9K. Nate Lashley is second best course history here at Grand Reserve Golf Club. He's 8,700. And Michael Kim, he's kind of had his struggles here, but I think some of these guys, you just get them to these coastal tracks where it's a little more scoring. The field is so weak. So I think Michael Kim, I love that price for him. And even right below him, Victor Perez, the Frenchman who had a good week last week, 8,500. He moved to Scotland. He is so used to the windy conditions that they're going to see this week. So I think he's another really good play. And then just a couple others. Alejandro Tosti struggling at some of these, big boy courses. I think get him down here where the scoring, it's a little more freewheeling down there in Puerto Rico. I love him at 7,500. And even a guy like Vince Whaley, 7,200. I really like that number as well.
Yeah, I don't mind them at all. I think that's the thing. You can just fire away at these 70-1 ranges in this course and this field. Like, someone's got to win this thing. I rolled out Ben Silverman, who's been playing really good golf. And, he was right in the mix again last week. And then I also rolled out Nico Echeverria, who I think was at 70-1 at one point. Now he's 45. So that was a nice little number there. If I was going to pick someone short of 30, it's Chan Kim at 30. I really like Chan. And I think, what did they score here last year? Like -20, -17? Like, if we can get low,
I think Echeverria, I think he was at -23 here last year.
Yeah. So Chan Kim making birdies on a course like that, I'm actually going to pull the trigger. So those will be my three guys. I think Silverman, Echeverria, and Chan Kim. I see Higo's in the field, Berger's in the field. We've got some interesting names, so we'll see what those boys can get up to. Aaron Rye doesn't make any sense at this golf course, but he's playing, so go for it. It's going to be a fun week. Did you dabble in any live at all? I see Cam Smith is catching a ton of hype. I'm potentially going to do a Brooks Koepka at what's the next event that they play? The big tough track. I can't remember the name now.
Could not tell you.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a Brooks double at the Masters. I'm gonna say he's gonna win the live event and win the Masters. If he loses that one, he's not gonna win the Masters, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens. But that's just my small little take on that. I'm excited to see Cam Smith make it to the Masters soon in April. All right, folks. Have a great week. Don't forget to check out the rabbit hole. Don't forget to dive over to BetSperts Golf. Send Ron a DM if you're looking for a promo code, if you aren't in those vivid states. And this week, don't forget, it's 69 golfers. It's lots of salary. Pivot your face off, friends.